Arutperunjothi Taniperum Karunai Arutperunjothi. May all sentient beings live in happiness. May the divine feet of Vallalar be raised. My dear brothers and sisters in spirit, in the last class we discussed about Siva Yoga and three branches of it, and they are called, you remember them, Amala Yoga, Tarpara Yoga and Sitpara Yoga. There are many more such inner branches of Siva Yoga as described by Vallalar's experience. He has narrated all of his experiences of Siva Yoga in various verses in many parts of his Thiruvarutpa. Of course, if I want to tell you all of those things, I have to give commentary on the whole book of Thiruvarutpa. It's not possible now. So let us see at least one or two poems from Thiruvarutpa. First of all, there are two things I would like you to know. One is that if you want to understand a concept, you have to understand the basic words employed to describe that subject. In ancient languages like Tamil, Sanskrit, Hebrew, Greek and Chinese. Here Swami employs, since he was master of Sanskrit and Tamil and English, here he describes the concept of Ananda. Today we are going to see Ananda Yoga, the yoga of bliss. So Swami describes his experiences in terms of both the languages. In Tamil it is called Inbam, Arampurul Inbam, as Thiruvallur says. He calls it Inbam. And in Sanskrit it is called Ananda. So he has described the concept and its experiences of it in Tamil as well as in Sanskrit, mainly Vedanta and Siddhanta. Well, another concept is that the way to understand is to see its history. What is the history of the idea of happiness? That will give you an outline of the picture and how that concept has evolved to the present state. Well, if you take up the Western philosophy, Aristotle defined happiness as the end of life itself. What is the end of life? Happiness. He has written a classic book on ethics. It is called Nicomachean Ethics. And the central theme of ethics, according to Aristotle, is happiness. And how to attain it? There are two ways: avoidance of pain and attainment of pleasure and enhancement of it. Avoidance of pain and attainment of pleasure. For instance, we have the need to satisfy our hunger. Otherwise, we will feel painful. So, we eat food. We can eat just rice or any other vegetables. That will satisfy your hunger. That is avoidance of pain. But if you want to increase and enhance the pleasure of eating, you go for pulao, payasam, sweets and other things. So this is how Aristotle defined happiness. Well, in ancient India, the seers of Upanishad talked a lot about Ananda, because they had a problem. They had to confront the definition of Buddha of life. Buddha said life is dukkha, living is dukkha, dying is dukkha. That is sorrow, extreme pain. And to combat this with his own eightfold path and meditation, it is called insight meditation. Finally, you will reach a state of nirvana where the very urge to live is extinguished. So the rishis had to combat this idea. They said, they negated this very idea of pain as the basis of life. They said, existence itself is bliss. Existence itself is bliss. So they defined God himself, Brahman himself, as Sat, Chit, Anandam, Satchidananda. Sat means eternal existence. God exists forever. He will never die. He existed in the past, existed in the exists in the present. He will exist in the future. Sat. Chit means consciousness and its power. That is omniscience, to know everything, and omnipotence, to do, the capacity to do everything. And Ananda, he is always in bliss. He never slips down from it. He is always in bliss. So Sat, Chit, Ananda. We are going to see that later. But when it comes to human beings, what happens is that we also have all these three attributes. We exist now, but this existence is relative. It's not absolute as that of God. It is short-lived. And then as for Chit, we have knowledge, but limited knowledge, relative knowledge. It is not absolute or complete or all-knowing. And then it could be short-lived. We get forgetfulness and forget things. And then our power is very limited. We are not able to see anything or do anything. So our powers are also limited. And our Ananda, happiness, is also very, very limited. It is quite short-lived. After that, it comes to a saturation point and we get bored, and it could even repel us. It could cause you unhappiness also. So these are the two types of happiness. We have transitoriness. Unfortunately, human beings are cursed by this transitoriness. Change is the only unchangeable thing, as Buddha and Heraclitus in Greece said. So everything is constantly changing. But in the world of God, there is no change. Everything is permanent, everything is eternal. So the seers of Vedas and the Upanishads, and in Saiva Siddhanta and up to Vallalar, they wanted to show humanity the change from temporariness to permanence, from time-bound living to timeless, eternal living. So here Vallalar Swami says, yes, my son, with your limited senses and limited intellect, you can have three forms of happiness or bliss, but there are 9 more. On the whole, he says there are 12 types of happiness and 12 types of bliss. The first 3 they are felt by every one of us, and some people like great artists and muktas, they feel the 4th type of happiness. So we have to divide these 12 stages into 3 realms. The first 4 belong to the human realm, terrestrial realm, and the next 4 belong to the realm of, the transcendental realm of angels and gods. And the last 4, they belong only to God, to the divine realm. So now, and there is one more point I would like to add here. the seer of the Upanishad, he has tried to give this science of bliss. When I say science, its definition. It should be quantifiable. It should contain only facts, verifiable by anybody, anywhere. It should be quantifiable. If I give you the famous definition of the British empiricist philosopher David Hume, you will understand the extremity to which these scientists go. He said, my friend, if you visit a library and take up a book, see whether it has got any facts, quantifiable facts, verifiable facts. If it doesn't contain any verifiable, quantifiable and measurable facts, throw it into the flames, burn it, he says. It was very vigorous and rigorous. That was the type of science they developed. So somehow or other the Rishi had intuited this science. Of course, we had our own astronomy and mathematics in India, and he tries to give us a science of happiness. This was not done even by Aristotle, even by Bacon or even Newton, because bliss is a psychological state. How to quantify it, how to measure it, but the seer has tried to give it in an understandable way, the science of bliss. And Vallalar adds two more out of his own experience to the list. We are going to see that now. First, he says, what is the basic unit of a subject? That you must define. That is the basic requirement of science. So the seer defines, my son, what is the ultimate level and peak of enjoyment that could be attained by a youth of 20 with a perfect physical body and all mental faculties intact? It's a perfect human being. He's got all his mental faculties intact, all of them are functioning fully, and has got full physical power like Arnold Schwarzenegger, the greatest bodybuilder of all times. So he says that is only one unit. Okay. And a human artist, a great artist like Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, or Raja Ravi Verma, or a great poet like Kamban, their happiness is 100 times more than the happiness of that youth. So it is 100 units. So a human artist has the capacity to feel and enjoy 100 units of such happiness. And then the third level, he goes to God. What is the power of enjoyment of a God or angel? It is 100 times more than the human artist. So 100 into 100, 10,000 units. And what about the artist in the angelic realm, like Gandharva or Kinnara? He says it is 100 times more than the bliss of a god. So 10,000 into 100, that makes 1 crore or say 10 millions. And what is the level of bliss attained by Brahma? It is 100 times more than Gandharva. So 100 crores of times, 100 crores of units of happiness Brahma will be able to experience. So this goes on like that until he reaches Brahman or Sachidananda. So in future, science could invent gadgets that could measure our love, compassion and happiness. Okay, now with that I would like to come back to modern philosophy. After Aristotle, this concept of happiness or bliss was almost forgotten by all the philosophers. The Christian medieval philosophers concentrated on faith in God and religious aspects. Later came modern philosophers like Bacon and Descartes. They wanted to refute both metaphysical systems of Greek philosophers like Plato and Aristotle, as well as the religious ideas of Saint Thomas Aquinas and Saint Anselm and other Christian saints. They concentrated only on reason. They knew that only with reason and science one could oppose the oppression of religion. So they concentrated only on the concept of reason. They did not give much importance to happiness. Again, this comes a full circle, and in the 20th century we have a school of philosophy called Existentialism. Its famous advocates were Martin Heidegger of Germany and Jean-Paul, it is pronounced as Ran, I don't know, Jean-Paul Sartre. They say existence itself is bliss. They come back to the Indian philosophy, to the old level of bliss. Existence itself is bliss, and he refutes all the metaphysical systems of Greece and the Christian doctrine of soul by coming out with his famous saying. Sartre says, existence precedes essence. Essence means soul of a thing or a soul of a man or God. And he says existence, first of all you must be alive, then only you can talk about soul and its higher dimensions of happiness and God and other things. First you must exist. Do you exist now? Do you feel it now? Totally, fully? Are you alive this moment? Do you feel it? Do you realize it? Do you realize it? It is itself bliss. See, compare it with a dead person. He doesn't feel anything. He is not alive. Doesn't exist. So, the very existence is blissful. Give importance to exist, because one day you could die. Death could terminate your life at any moment. You don't know. Death is stalking you. Every moment it is coming behind you. You don't know when it will strike. So, as long as you are alive, enjoy it. Enjoy it to the maximum, to the last puff. Enjoy the cigarette of life. So, enjoy everything with your senses, with your intellect, and with your whole being. I think this could be the consequence of Eastern influences like Swami Vivekananda, even before that Max Muller, who compiled all the Vedas and edited the series, great books of the Eastern world. And by Professor D.T. Suzuki, who came from Japan to America and Europe, and he taught the Zen system of Buddhism, not the Buddhism proper, but Zen Buddhism. They emphasize this moment by moment living. All the New Age gurus talk mainly about this. Live moment by moment. Are you alive? This moment, concentrate on this moment. This is called spontaneous living. Don't allow your memory or thought to interfere. Don't dissect life, in the words of Wordsworth. Don't dissect life. Don't try to see it anatomy. Enjoy it with your senses and mind and your being. Spontaneous living, they call it. And live every moment like a child, as though it were for the first time you are enjoying that moment. So this is the basic tenet of existentialism. So they have come all the way back to square one. So now we have defined the concept of Ananda. Why man lives? He lives for happiness and the enhancement of happiness. How to do that? Vallalar Swami gives us very important clues about these things in two of his poems. In Tiruchitambala Deivamani Malai, in the garland of poems on the gem-like Tiruchitrambalam, Temple of Gnosis by Vallalar. Well, let us directly enter into those two poems. Idamperum Indiriya Inbam, Karana Inbam, Ulaga Inbam, Uyir Inbam Mudal Eidum Inbamagi. See, what are the types of bliss possible for humans? I mean, what are we capable of, ordinary humans? Idamperum Indiriya Inbam. Indiriya Inbam means happiness attained through the senses. And Karana Inbam, intellectual pleasure. Ulaga Inbam, the world offers us a lot of types of happiness. Uyir Inbam, we'll see that in detail later. Let me first complete the poem. Uyir Inbam Mudal Eidum Inbamagi, human level types of happiness. Tadam Perum or Anma Inbam, it is solidified, it becomes definite. Tadam Perum or Anma Inbam, Tanitha Arivinbam, Sathiya Perinbam, Mutti Inbamumai. See the next level of four types of bliss. Anma Inbam, Tanitha Arivinbam, Sathiya Perinbam, Mukti Inbam. And then he goes to the divine realm. Adan male, Nadam Perum, who is dancing? Nataraja. He comes to the level of Nataraja. Nadam Perum, Meipurul Inbam. He is the only philosopher's stone. Eternal philosophers, not any ordinary stone, as mentioned by the foreign and Indian Siddhas. Nadam Peru, Meipurul Inbam, God. Niradisaya Inbam. These are all varieties of bliss possible at that divine state. Niradisaya Inbam. Gnana Siddhi Perumboga not Aras Inbam. Gnana Siddhi Perumboga not Aras Inbam. My Didam Perum. Here Vallalar adds two of his own experiences. Didam Perum Vongiya Iyarkai Tani Inbamayama. Tiruchitrambalam Danile Deivam Ondre Kandir. Now, I have written some 120 pages of commentary on these two poems in this book. Well, I cannot go into all that now, we don't have time. If possible, you can get this book and go through that. Then you will understand this yoga of bliss very thoroughly. The methods of how to attain them are also given in the form of exercises in that book. You will see that at the end shortly. Now, the translation goes like this. Behold the only embodiment of absolute bliss, dancing in the form of ever-growing, natural and pure compassionate light in the inner temple of Gnosis, manifesting its bliss in various forms, namely, now we are going to see the 12 forms of Inbam, bliss. Indriya Inbam, the happiness enjoyed through the senses by all organic beings, particularly from amoeba to the animal level. They have got no intellectual capacity. Of course, it is there in form of potency, but they are not expressed. So, Indriya Inbam means Meivai Kanmuku Sevi. These five senses, touch, taste, smell, sight and hearing. If I give you an example, you will understand. Touch. See, there was a famous lady called Helen Keller. She was blind, deaf and dumb. She had only one sense, her touch. By reading her Braille language, she later came to enjoy other senses like seeing, hearing, and writing. She has written a wonderful book. Everyone must read it. If you read it only, you will understand what benefits God has blessed upon us. She has written her book, My Life. And she used to travel all over the world, meet all the great men, and she has described her experiences and feelings about all these things by her touch alone. And there was one famous ballet dancer. What is the art of touch? It is dancing. The whole body expresses itself in dancing. And everyone must read the diary of Nijinsky. That ballet dancer, just by dancing, he attained mukti. He attained enlightenment. It is ballet dance is something similar to our Ananda Tandava of Shiva. Most of the time during the Tandava dance, the feet will be above the ground. Some kind of levitation he will be always doing. Even in ballet dance, most of the time the feet are above the ground. And what is meant by Tandavam, sir? Tandu plus Avam. Avam means death. Death is caused by this gravitation mostly, because they bring down all of our energies towards earth. And during Tandavam dance, you are trying to conquer the gravitational pull and thereby death. So Tand Avam. In Saivism they say, why of all gods, Shiva is known as a dancer. And our ancient forefathers had known that by practicing Tandava, one could attain the level of Shiva. It is a kind of Shiva Yoga, and one could enter into Shiva Bhogam by practicing Tandava. I don't know whether anybody practices Tandava now. Well, all those things are forgotten. Anyway, this is for Indriya Inbam. And 5 senses are there. As for sight, I can tell you one example from my life. I don't know whether it be blowing my own trumpet. Once I chanced to see a dance performance of Miss Padma Subramaniam on TV. I was transfixed. I was transported to another realm of bliss. When it was over, I put it down on paper and wrote a poem. And my wife sent the book of poems, the collection, to the lady. And the lady enjoyed it and she replied in a card. She invited us to her house. And in that poem, I had 3 lines. You didn't dance. I was not watching. The dance danced itself and 2 mirrors reflected it. நீ ஆடவில்லை, நான் காணவில்லை, நடனம் ஆடிற்று 2 கண்ணாடிகள் அதனை பிரதிபலித்தன. I wrote something like that. So, even sight could give you that type of bliss. Well, you can find many instances of this in William Wordsworth's poems. We don't have to quote all those things, we don't have time. As for hearing, even this morning I was listening to a beautiful and wonderful rendering of Arutpa songs by our Malaysia Sadasivamaya Ayya. It boosts your energy instantly. Whenever I feel tired, I switch on the cell phone and I listen to Malayur Sadasivamaya Ayya's rendering of Arutpa songs. Instantly I get back my energy. And sometimes it takes me to the higher realm of bliss. Many times I have experienced it. And Karana Inbam. Karana Inbam means intellectual pleasure. Why are we assembled here? For intellectual pleasure. Human beings alone can enjoy this intellectual bliss totally, fully, particularly by scientists and philosophers. Reading the dialogues of Plato has given me immense pleasure. Reading Tirukural, Tirumandram, Tiruvarutpa, Kambaramayana, reading itself gives you that pleasure. And listening to speeches of great souls, they take you above the level of human beings into higher levels of gods and divinity. So this Karana Inbam, see, why do we see films? Why do we enjoy our cell phone? The film and the cell phone, they satisfy three needs of senses and intellect. See, you see it, you listen to it, and you understand it with your intellect. So three senses of the six, three senses are satisfied by the film. In future, they say you will also be able to smell it, and in virtual reality you will be able to touch the three-dimensional figure also. So it will be actually like living, daily living, they say. I don't know. So this intellectual pleasure, Swami says, Karana Inbam. And then Ulaga Inbam, the happiness born of the union of vital life with the objects in the world. What is our life? It's an interaction between our body, mind complex, and the things in the world. You can think of these examples. Why do people go to hill stations like Ooty, and why do married couples go to Switzerland, Kashmir for their honeymoon? And why do even yogis go to mountain tops and natural places to meditate? Because the beautiful scenery, that atmosphere, it gives you some kind of silence, inner silence, calmness. And the Rishi always asks, he will start every treatise with the words Om Shanti Shanti Shanti, and he will end the Upanishad saying Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So the first basic requirement is Shanti, peace in the mind. And then only you can go for higher denominations of bliss. So this Ulaga Inbam, nature gives us beautiful scenery, and Wordsworth poetry is known for that. You would say in one famous poem, one impulse from the vernal wood will teach you more of man than all the books can. See, that was how he enjoyed natural scenery. In another famous poem called Intimations of Immortality. And in some other poems, he also explains his experience of natural beauty. And Walt Whitman, the modern poet, American poet, he says, what type of pleasure or bliss Wordsworth enjoyed from natural scenery? He says he enjoyed just by sightseeing in the urban world, the moving cars and moving people. So anything could be a cause for happiness. So this is Ulaga Inbam. And then Uyir Inbam, the joy of Jiva or the psyche or soul. When you fall in love, it gives you immense pleasure. These young people who fall in love, they forget food, they forget their sleep, they forget everything. They forget even their own parents. They don't bother about laws of morality or even tradition. They forget everything. Only one thing matters for them, to see the lover and be with him or with her. So, and even friendship and parental love, all sorts of love and and things like ideologies, patriotism and ideologies, they also touch your soul. This is called Uir Inbam. So here our ordinary enjoyments of our ordinary life stand. Oh, time. And Anma Inbam, the permanent joy of the greater self or spirit. Anma Inbam, the enjoyment of the spirit. What is the indication that you have enjoyed spirit? Well, you will feel totally peaceful. Even if you have diseases in your body, even if you have a lot of debts in your life, nothing will bother you. Nothing will bother you. This is the bliss of a Jnani. See, Ramana Maharshi had cancer, skin cancer, and Sri Ramakrishna had throat cancer. But they didn't bother about it. They were always, their consciousness was always centered in their Anma. This is called Anma Inbam. And Tanitha Arivinbam, the unique ecstasy of pure wisdom, of insight, like that of Kumbakonam Ramanujan. At the end of his life, he also had some fatal disease. It was giving him full of pain, and in order to forget that pain, he immersed himself in his mathematics. So, this ecstasy of pure wisdom born of intuition is called Tanitha Arivinbam. And the seventh one, Sathiya Perinbam, the greater bliss of truth consciousness. Truth consciousness. See, when Archimedes discovered the law of density and refraction, he was bathing in his bathtub nakedly and he forgot everything, and he ran on the street calling, Eureka, Eureka, I have discovered, I have discovered. So this type of Sathiya Perinbam. When Einstein discovered his law of relativity, he says he was overjoyed. In a few minutes, he said he was revealed the total theory of relativity, special relativity. And it took him 6 more years to convince the other scientists with their logical and mathematical reasoning, he says. So, that type of Sathiya Perinbam, if you discover some truth itself, truth about the laws of nature, truth about God, something like that, as Vallalar Swami discovered the bliss of Arutperunjothi as the ultimate form of Shiva, Arut Shiva and God. Okay, next. Mukti Inbam, the bliss of salvation, the freedom from the cycle of births and deaths. All these muktas, I don't have to name them to you. Taimana Swami and Ramana Maharshi, Sri Ramakrishna, Vivekananda, all these great muktas, they are free from the natural cycle of birth and death. They are always in Mukti Inbam. And then finally we enter into the realm of God. The bliss of this is called Meiporul Inbam, seeing God himself, having a darshan. We saw that in Siva Rupam and Siva Darshanam. The bliss of seeing God dancing on the pedestal of spirit, Siva Darshana. So if you have a glimpse of God, say Nataraja, dancing Nataraja, then you will feel this Meiporul Inbam. And then Niradisaya Inbam. See, Aristotle defined philosophy as wonder. Wonder is the beginning of philosophy. Man has the capacity to wonder at the immense cosmos and the immense moral power, intellectual power inside his mind. But a saint, a Jnani, goes beyond this wonder, because he himself becomes the wonder, he himself becomes the cosmos, he himself becomes all the things in the world, and he himself becomes all the beings in the world. So he doesn't wonder anymore at anything, because he is always in wonder itself. He is wonder itself. Niradisaya invam, he doesn't differentiate between one state of consciousness to another. He doesn't have likes or dislikes. Swami says, Asayatren Ihaluru Verupu Matre. See, no dislike, no like, no dislike. You will say, உறவு பகை என்று உளரும் பேதமற்ற ஓடிற்று. உறவு பகை இரண்டும் எனக்கு இல்லை. So this is called நிரதிசய இன்பம். It's a unique state enjoyed by these enlightened masters. The bliss belonging to the divine world, Sivalokam alone, whereby one experiences everything as oneself, not different or strange from oneself. And the bliss of the next thing is Gnana Siddhars Nattu Arasu Inbamumai. See, he has got 5 epithets, 5 adjectives here. It is Gnana Siddhi. It is not Karma Siddhi, it is not Yoga Siddhi, it is Gnana Siddhi. Siddhi of wisdom, Gnana Siddhi. Perumbogam, this is the highest form of enjoyment possible, even for God. Not Arasinbam. What is the kingdom of God? The entire cosmos. Arasu Inbamumai. So one sees God, he gets from him his blessings, and this Siddha is ordered to rule a part of the cosmos. Valluvar names these people as Nitar. These are Mahatmas who are Sati, Sathars. They are ruling the nature, a part of universe. So, the bliss of miraculous and divine powers blessed by God upon one such spirit of wisdom called Arivar by Tulgapiyar. See, in the days of Tulgapiyar, Siddhas were known as Arivar, pure Tamil, not Siddhas. And he defines Arivar as Mukkalamum Unarnda Arivor. Who is a Siddha? Who is a Jnani? One who understands his past, one who understands all that is going on in the present, and who understands who is going to happen in times to come. And when Buddha got enlightened, according to his Buddha Charita, it says he remembered 24 previous births of his, 24 previous births of his own life. So these Siddhas, they remember everything. And Vallalar Swami gives you the exact number of seconds he lived in his father's body in the form of a drop of semen, and the exact number of seconds he lived in his mother's womb. See, they don't forget anything. They don't forget anything. No cessation of consciousness, no forgetfulness. So, Aindozhilum Seyyana Panithan, Vallalar Swami will say. We are going to see that later in Siva Bhogam. Aindozhilum, all the 5 acts done by God: creation, sustenance, destruction, obscuration, and grace. Padaithal, Kaathal, Azhithal, Maraithal, Arulal. All the 5 acts of divinity are given to these Siddhas, Gnana Siddhas. That is what their bliss is described here as Gnana Siddhi Perumboga Nattu Arasinbamumai. And then Vallalar Swami adds 2 more bliss forms of bliss from his own experience. Says, Didam Perum Vongiya Yerkai Tani Inbamayamam. See, 4 adjectives. Didam Perum, it will be there forever, you will never lose it. Vongiya, it is eternally growing, ever increasing universe. Yerkai, it is quite natural, it is not artificially yearned like our yoga. We attain certain powers by practicing yoga, but God did not attain his powers by any yoga or any method is born with that. So திடம் பெரும் ஓங்கிய இயற்கை தனி unique இன்பம், unique, it cannot be compared with any other thing. So at the level of Siva Bhoga you attain the level of Siva himself. Arutperunjothi Ayinai. See, God Vallalar tells, God Arutperunjothi tells Vallalar, you have become Arutperunjothi, you have attained Arutperunjothi, Arulmadi Valga. You lead the life of divinity. Here, my son, you are blessed with these 5 powers of divinity. He says in the Agaval poem, Tiruchitrambalandhanile Deivam Ondre Kandir. There is only one God and he is dancing inside the temple of Gnosis. Where is the temple of Gnosis? Inside our mind, at the center of our head. And we have already discussed about it when we talked about Siva Rupam. So inside here, Mukku, inside this Mukku, you have got that place called Tiruchitrambalam, and in the form of light, moving light called Nataraja or Arutperunjothi, it is eternally dancing. When it ceases it dancing in the body, well, finished. We die. The soul leaves the body and we die. And that is why Swami has given us Anaya Vilak, this lamp here inside our head. It should never get extinguished at all. It should be constantly be alive. It should be constantly be going on. That is why it is called Anaya Adupu. All the 24 hours in our house, the lamp is constantly burning. All the 24 hours, 365 days. It means only this head is the lamp, and that flame, that is your self. Anaya Vilak. Okay, with that we have completed interpreting and giving and explaining this one poem. There is another poem that may take one more hour, so I would like to close with this in this session. Arutperunjothi Arutperunjothi Taniperum Karunai Arutperunjothi. May all sentient beings live in happiness. May the divine feet of Vallalar be praised.